Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It's a live edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. And it is Tuesday. That means we'll have Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show, and then we will have Graham Hall, 24/7 Sports, give us an update on what's going on in the Gator Nation. Let's go to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Buddy Martin. You can listen to Buddy Monday through Friday nights on Facebook Live, YouTube, all that good stuff. He's your late night Gator talk show host. Good morning, Buddy Martin. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm David Letterman. You're Johnny Carson. Back that deal is, by the way, I'm so mixed up about things right now. There's so many things going on and so many different times and so many different sports. I just can't keep up. Shane, I just call the all-time women's scorer in basketball, who has been one of the darlings of basketball, called her by the wrong name. I called her Caitlin Collins, who's a correspondent for CNN, as opposed to Caitlin Clark. And I was telling you, I watched some of that game last night, and her final game at Iowa, and it was just an amazing thing. And, Shane, in this day era of everything's money, 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 I get it. There are still some good stories out there, and she's one.
Yeah, she's clearly the best female basketball player I've ever watched. And I'll be honest, I've only watched her play probably 3 or 4 times and not a whole lot. But she's very talented, and she is foregoing her senior year, and she's moving on to the WNBA, which should be, I think, the first pick of the Indiana Fever. So it'll be interesting to see how her professional career goes. But she's one hell of a player, no question about it.
She's got all the things you love about an athlete, her dedication, her fundamentals. She's about the team, but yet she's a superstar. She's gracious. She's a baller. I mean, she dives on the floor for balls. She'll scrap you. I mean, she's Larry Bird, really, is what she is.
Yep, she is. As I said, best I've ever seen in women's basketball by far. Buddy, we got a text here on the Titan MR text line from William. His comment is, Buddy, have you given up or have you jumped on the bandwagon for Gator baseball?
No, I mean, I never was not on the bandwagon. As a letterman in baseball in Florida, Shane lettered in football, I lettered in baseball. I never was not. I'm just waiting. It's a long season. Certainly the LSU series was a big one. The comebacker. And Caglione is in another world. I mean, he's just unbelievable. How lucky we are to have those kind of players come through Florida and get to watch him and ride him and talk. And he also represents the good things about the sport. And he's an amazing player. These are things I consider treats. When I get to watch a guy like Jack Caglione play baseball and get to follow him because he's a so-called local guy, yeah, meaning I get to watch most of his games. That's a real privilege for me as a fan and as a writer and as a broadcaster to have people like that to talk about. And at another level, Caitlin Clark, I don't ever get to say, I don't know her. I don't know Jack Caglione, but it's just a privilege for me. That's why we get in this business, to talk about things and stories like that, and the really great stories of March Madness. I would ask the question, Shane, this morning. I asked you this last night on the show and you answered it. Did you like this year's March Madness first Sweet 16 better or less than last year? And I know some people will say less because the team didn't get in they wanted. And it does get a little confusing, but the storylines were good. I really, really enjoyed it. And I asked you last night about your favorite storyline. So, yeah, those kind of connections, good, strong stories about good people and interesting people. And I'm going to mention one about golf today. Always bring me back to sports, Shane.
Yeah, to answer your question about the Sweet 16 or just basically March Madness, I don't even remember who was in the Sweet 16 last year, but I don't think the tournament ever disappoints. I think it's been outstanding this year. Obviously, with Oakland's upset, had James Madison winning a first round game over Wisconsin. You had Grand Canyon advancing. So you had some really good. NC State's a great story. They were 11 seed in their own conference tournament, won 5 straight games in 5 straight days, and won 7 games in 12 days. Nobody expected them to do what they're doing, but that goes to show you a lot of times in the NCAA tournament, maybe it will happen. The best team doesn't always win. It's just whoever's playing their best basketball.
No doubt about it.
But to answer your question, I absolutely love March Madness because there are always upsets every year, and I think it's been great so far this year. A couple of people commented on Facebook Live about Caitlin Clark, referring to NIL versus the WNBA. I don't know what girls make in the WNBA. I don't think it's a whole lot, but I do know that she signed, I think she has a deal with Gatorade and State Farm and stuff like that. That will continue. So that probably pays her a good chunk of money. And, she's probably just ready to move on with her life and get into a professional career. And I just don't know how much Iowa would pay her to come back, but she's made her decision already. So
and she's earned.
I don't have any.
She's earned that right to do that.
Yeah. So anyway, tonight we were talking Gator baseball. As you said, Jack Caglione, he is a special talent. I'm going to go ahead and say he's the best we've ever had. I know you put my man Brad Wilkerson up there. There's some other ones, but nobody compares to him. They travel to Jacksonville tonight to take on the semis. In the second game of this series, Gators didn't look good in the first one. Who knows how it looks? I'm not sure who's pitching tonight. I haven't looked, but it's another midweek game. This one, hopefully we can find a way to win it. I know the midweek games, I've said it multiple times, don't really matter.
I don't like it.
It's what you do.
I don't like it to lose those games. I just don't like that. I know that doesn't seem to matter in the end, but I just hate to see a team rank high. Now they are back up number 6. They held there after the LSU victory. It was hard to follow LSU this weekend because the games are not on regular TV and not on the SEC
They're
network.
on SEC network.
Well, I couldn't get it.
SEC network.
I was watching basketball. I couldn't get to it. But nonetheless, I guess they had that big explosion and 11 innings of Caglione took them to victory there. So they're staying at number 6. Not that it matters that much because it's all going to be decided on the field. But you just got a feeling this team just is a pitcher away, or they've had some real bad hitting slumps lately, some guy leaving guys on base, etc. And Caglione, his numbers, I saw him last night. Scott Carter put him out there. It's just amazing the numbers he's put up.
Yeah, but buddy, you just mentioned you were a baseball letterman. How many games did y'all struggle at the plate and pitching? It's just baseball. As many games you play, you're going to have those nights or those days. Look, we're 4-2 in the SEC. We have won the series against two top 5 teams, Texas A&M and LSU. I think this team is fine. I think they're going to make a run just like they do every year. They have pop in their lineup. Cags has pitched lights out on day 3. And like I said, a week ago on my show, everybody was bitching and complaining like you have no idea about the baseball team. And I basically said, maybe Sully and them don't even need to get on the damn bus and go to Baton Rouge since we have no chance. Well, what do you know? They win 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
They run rule the defending national champs. So let it play out. I believe he's been coaching a long time. He's very successful. He knows more baseball. He knows more about his team than anybody on this program. So I think they're going to be fine.
I don't disagree with you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying they got Mississippi State at home this weekend. So Mississippi State took 2 out of 3 against LSU. Hopefully we take 2 out of 3. Maybe we can sweep them and get our first sweep of the series. Of the year, I'm sorry. So that's just where I sit with baseball. I know people, they want to win every game like I do, but it ain't going to happen, people. You got to accept that.
Well, I defer to Sully, and most people do, but you can grouse a little bit. And I hate to see a team ranked 2 or 3 in the country lose to Jacksonville or something. No, it's not good. But in the end, as you say, it all evens out, and they know what the plan is, and it doesn't seem to enter into the equation as long as you get to Omaha and you got a shot that you lost 6 or 7 midweek games that you shouldn't have lost.
Yep, for sure. So softball continues their great run so far. We had a good question here from Brian on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Loss. Shane, I'm curious to know what are some of the tips that Coach Spurrier used to teach his quarterbacks about throwing the football. Were there distinctives that made him unique as a teacher of throwing football? Look, we had basic fundamentals that we did every day, but we threw routes on air for about an hour a day. That's how you get accurate. That's how you understand spacing. That's how you understand timing. And he did teach it. He teaches it different than anybody else. You hear about people going through their progressions. If number one, this is number one, that's number two, that's number three. We didn't have that. We just picked a side of the field or picked an area of the field and kind of just felt where the open areas were, because we knew with our route concepts, we could throw it in those areas. And if it wasn't open, we always dumped it down to our back. So probably didn't explain that very well. But, if you watch guys play today, they stare down receivers because they're looking, is number one open? No, he's not. Now I got to go to number two. We never did that. And it's funny, Coach Spurrier will call me once or twice a week, and he'll be like, I was here, I was watching this game, or I was watching some old tape, or blah, blah, blah. And these guys are just staring down the receivers. I don't understand them. So very interesting.
And yet he's a
different dude, no question about it.
Yeah, you had a primary receiver too, and the game was to look off the safety and find the open man, and if he wasn't open, fine. Did y'all have the jump ball and then the back shoulder throw then? I can't remember. It seemed like it came a little bit later. Yeah, a little later with Danny. Yeah. And for a long time, I thought he was over.
No, well, they didn't have it then.
Well, there's some. I can read Dell.
Well, here's the deal. If you underthrow a deep ball, people sometimes say, "Oh, that was a back shoulder."
Right, I get
sometimes
it.
You underthrow. Sometimes you just underthrow balls, and it's to the offense's advantage. So that we never really tried to underthrow a ball.
But there are a lot of 50-50 balls that I can read down those guys got. One of them got. It seemed like a back shoulder. So I don't know which one.
That's why you should throw the ball deep in some concept.
How many times a game, Shane?
8 times minimum of 8. Minimum. So if you do that, good things can happen. I promise you that.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, Jeff says here it's a huge difference to throw your 1, 2, and 3 on the weekends and bottom of the bullpen against Stetson. Yeah. So I don't know who's pitching tonight. Joseph says Jacob Gomberg should be back in the rotation in the next 3 weeks. Kid throws high 90s but hasn't played yet due to injury. So, look, I'm not worried about the baseball team. They're going to be just fine. Just fine.
But Shane, you're not worried about anything, ever, no matter what happens. You're not worried about
I'm not worried about it. That's not true.
Huh?
Because if you see something that's just god awful, you're like, this team has no chance of winning any games.
Yeah.
It's just like in basketball. Everybody freaked out when we lost to Vanderbilt. I'm like, look, people lose at Vandy for whatever reason. Was it great that we lost? No. But the basketball team was extremely talented. And again, we talked about it last night on your show. Officiating, whatever you want to complain about, it was just a heartbreaking way to lose a basketball game, because this team, in my opinion and in other people's opinions, they could have made a run. Now, could they have beaten Marquette? Who knows? They matched up extremely well on Marquette because they like to get up and down the floor. But they lost a heartbreaker, 102-100, and they were fun to watch.
Big stud in the middle. A big stud in the middle. Came back, played great basketball, deserved to win that game, except when, like I said before, on a night when the other team shoots 63% and dominates the glass and gets all the calls, you're not going to win that game. It just wasn't meant to be.
Well, what did we shoot, buddy?
Wasn't 63%. I can tell you that. I don't know.
It had to be. Had to be pretty damn high to score 100 points, though, right?
Yeah, and there was no
So,
defense in that game, but it sure probably shot 52 or 3, I would imagine. But
which is very good.
but the shot they made at the end of the game was just a shot that was going to go in, no matter what happened. You know, you hit a rim ratter like that out of the corner after pushing off on the guy, and it goes through the net to win for the win. It's just not your night.
No, I mean, it was, like I said, it was heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. Radware is a family-owned business that prides itself on excellent customer service while providing quality and affordable promotional products and customized apparel. We got Buddy Martin here on the Titan Mo Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. We're going to have Graham Hall, so get your questions. I know, Graham, there's a lot of recruiting stuff going on right now, spring football, and obviously all the spring sports. Buddy, let's talk a little football.
Okay.
I know you hadn't been to any practices. Are you excited for the spring game, buddy, in a couple of weeks?
Well, no, I'm not. I'm also excited. I'm enthusiastic, and I want to see with my own eyes. Thankfully, it's on a Saturday and it's not a night game, which I'm grateful for. Some of these names that are popping up now, a lot of new names introduced over the weekend in Billy's press conference. If you haven't seen that, you ought to. He made a point of mentioning some names and talked about the secondary, talked about a position group in a very positive manner, which is kind of what we've been saying. Give us something, give us an evaluation. Tell us what you think. And he did a lot of that in that Saturday press conference, which I was glad to see. It seemed to be on an uptick. Obviously we know the whole situation with Lagway is exciting, and of course we know the quarterback situation is set. But like you say, Shane, you can't really tell about anything till they hit. I mean, you just can't. Now, last year they allowed them to blitz everywhere. Maybe that was by design. But I'm anxious to see some of those new players. Well, unfortunately, we won't get to see Miles Graham, which he's out for the spring after surgery. But there are some good things happening there. It feels like there's progress. The press conferences feel more upbeat. And here's the key. The other players are talking about the players. They're talking about the new players in a positive fashion, the so-called veterans. That's always a good sign, Shane.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think from you talk about it, the talent evaluation process. I think for whatever you think of Billy Napier and his staff, I think they've been really, really good since they've been here. Our best players are the guys they've brought in. If you look, I spoke with they had their pro day the other day. I did not go. This buddy of mine who's a scout, he texts me. He's like, y'all have nobody other than Ricky Pearsall. And I was like, I know.
No, dude.
I mean, just think about that.
True. That's not true.
That's going to get drafted?
Oh, no, drafted, you're correct. We know that. Tell us something we don't know.
That's
but
what I'm talking
players.
about. But that goes
to
okay.
Show yeah.
That's what I'm saying. This would have been a part of Dan Mullen's class, his last class, I think.
He didn't have Pearsall. He didn't have Pearsall, yeah.
Right. So the scout was telling me, I've watched your so-called draft eligible players, and the only one that I am even interested in is Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, well, we know that.
That says a lot. No, buddy, usually the University of Florida has 5 to 10 players that scouts are looking at. I'm not talking about first to third rounder. I'm talking about people that can make an NFL roster.
That's true.
And that is I think people don't realize the type of talent that Billy has brought in. And so anyway, that's just I just thought that was very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Shane, we're getting close, Shane. We're getting real close. What's today? Today the 26th? Is that what it is?
Close to what?
You know what?
Close to what?
You know what?
The Masters.
It happens you got it, pal. Coming up.
Well, so buddy, here's the thing. The Masters is the same weekend as the Orange and Blue game.
Always has been. I have left the Masters. Well, yes, I'm going to say this. Recent years, I left the Masters probably 5 times to come home to the Orange and Blue game. People told me I was crazy, but that was what was the most interesting story. I mean, the Masters, I love it. It's my all-time favorite. I've been to 28, 29. I love it. It's my all-time favorite event, whatever. But I got to see what's happening in the spring to have an idea because we're talking about it all fall. So you still get to watch the Masters. Look, the truth be known, Shane, the best place to watch the Masters is on TV. That is I've been there many times. And when I covered the events, even, we would have the same routine. We would go down to Amen Corner on Saturday and Sunday, watch the leaders come through, tee off at 13, then we'd scamper back up to the media center and watch the last few holes on TV, which is the only way you can watch that event. You can't watch it and know what's going on. So that's how we always did it. But I love the event. I love going there. I didn't ever understand why people loved it so much until I moved to the north and I made trips to Augusta in the spring from New York and Denver. And you get there and see green grass and you go crazy. And you get to see the azaleas and the dogwoods and whatever. And then you open the gates there on Washington Road. It's like a time warp. Nothing's changed for the most part. Just a special, special place. I haven't been back in, gosh, what has it been, 5 or 6 years? But I mean, it's a really neat place. If you can only go to one sporting event, I mean, the Super Bowl is nice and all that. To me, the
No.
Masters is it.
Yeah, Super Bowl doesn't even compare. Super Bowl's not even as good as a college national championship game. Or
Well, no,
I
but
should say
there's parties.
it's not as good as an SEC. Not as good as an SEC championship game.
Yeah,
SEC championship game is the best atmosphere
it's
in
good.
football.
It's very good. But I'm not talking about that from the standpoint of the game. I'm talking about the standpoint of the fan experience. I mean, I don't care for all the.
I'm with you. Augusta National is one of the prettiest places on earth.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike says here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Melvin Law. Sure missed the days I played against you, Jerry Emmett, and the rest in softball tournaments. You played a heck of a shortstop. We won against y'all in the Newberry tournament. Boy, that was a long time ago. Back in the
Shane,
we used to.
Getting called out on softball. What was your big play?
Well,
could you go deep in the hole as a shortstop? Bet you couldn't you?
Yeah, I played deep in that softball league because you talking about bullets coming at you?
Yeah.
Good Lord, it was not fun. It was not fun, but
well,
yeah, we had a
lot easier than having. I'm sorry, it's a lot easier than having 300-pound guys coming at you, wasn't it?
I don't know about that. Not some of these teams we'd play in these softball tournaments. These are some grown ass men. They would just hit bombs.
Oh yeah.
So it was fun back in those days, back in college, playing a little softball. Yeah, we got a text here on the Titan MR text line, and it comes from Rob. He says, speaking of the Masters, buddy, what is your favorite Masters that you covered?
Well, no question about it. 86, Nicklaus, and coming back when everybody thought he was dead. And when that, as he did, and Seve hit it no water, and Jack won, and almost had a hole of one in 16. Of course, at that time, Nicklaus was my favorite athlete of all time. It had something to do with it. I mean, obviously the Tiger win. People forget Tiger shot 40 on the front side of his first Masters. They said, well, he's done. He'll never be able to play here. And he brought it back, and I think he shot 30 on the back or whatever it was. And then, of course, he dominated. And I remember that distinctly because at that time, my wife was with me. And I remember the first time he won. And she pointed out to me as he was putting on 18, at Augusta National, where everything is done properly and the staff is probably half African American and people inside, they do everything so perfectly. At the end, there were about 35, 40 African American employees who would never be allowed to do that ordinarily, outside standing and watching Tiger play 18. It was so historic. And it was a beautiful marriage. Tiger and Augusta. Jack was a beautiful marriage. There were some wonderful tournaments there. I have so many great moments. I couldn't begin to tell you how many, but my favorite tournament was 86 and Jack Nicklaus.
Yeah, that was a good one. We got a text here on the Titan MR text line from Jonathan in Atlanta. He says, do y'all know how Florida Victorious is doing now? Have we increased the membership? I don't know the exact answer to that. I'm sure they're doing better. I know there are tons of billboards around the state. Do you have any comments on that, buddy?
I do. I've talked to Freddie a little bit about it. He's happy with the progress. He thinks they're getting more donations. They're trying to get the word out to more people. He said it's not about asking everybody to be, give $1 million. Give what you can, but participate in it. And he must have $1 million in billboards up around the state, as you said. I think Coach Spurrier is on most of them. But I think he seems pleased. He wanted to make it clear the story came out of the Sentinel. I think I mentioned this before about a month ago that they're broke. He says, we're far from broke. He said, we're one of the top 10 programs in the country in terms of raising money. So, but I see that they've now upped the recruiting budget to 4 million. So there's no end in sight. Shane, you told me 3 years ago, well, they'll never do anything in recruiting until they get their new facility. Well, they got that. Didn't seem to help too much. This is a bottomless pit.
That's not the point. If NIL had not come about, you got to remember, buddy, Billy Napier had everything go against him when he took the head job here.
There's no doubt about it.
The Gators had no facility, and then NIL hit at the same time. It was imperative that we get the facility. I mean, we were the only team pretty much other than Vanderbilt that did not have a football facility, and it was embarrassing. Like I told you, there are teams, high schools in the state of Georgia that have really nice football facilities that were better than what the Gators had before they got this new facility. I mean, it's they had to have that. So,
Shane, I didn't say that to say you were wrong. Point was that's how far we've come from. That's old news.
Oh, we were so far behind.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You can blame Jeremy Follick for that, who kept saying, I won't get in the arms race. And they built half a facility until they finally agreed to go full yards with it. And still it's too small. There's no room on the sidelines, etc. They spent a lot of lavish money was in some of those things. And a lot of people threw away money on those rivers and the streams and all those bells and whistles. And
I don't think they threw money away. I think it helped kids like that stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, all right.
If you look at Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and Oregon, those are the 4 teams that have probably the best facility in America and have redone them over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I just named 4 teams. I think they were all in like the top 6 or 7 last year. So it does matter. I don't care what anybody says.
No, Shane, I didn't say it didn't matter. I mean, the stadium matters too. But to lay out another pot full of money for that right now, I mean,
the stadium is all about the fans. The players don't care about the stadium because we have a tremendous venue. We don't care if people are sitting in chairbacks. We don't care if people are sitting on concrete. It's a great venue. That's different. That has nothing to do with the athlete. That's all a fan experience. I don't agree with putting money into the stadium right now. It's not my decision, but I think the Swamp is fine the way it is. Is it crowded? Do the seats need to be bigger? Yes. But an athlete who's being recruited does not care about that. Real quick, buddy, Andy on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon, says, after the spring game, will you be able to get some Gator players on your show?
Freddie Weeby tells me yes, because, we had him last year. We had 20. And when the things changed over, we got lost in the shuffle. I know Ben has a couple on the 84 podcast, but Freddie Weeby tells me that's going to change. The lack of, not just because it's my show, but the fact is they didn't make them very available this past year. And Billy is trying to get control of the program, I think, and trying to figure out what's okay to do and what's not. Was overly conservative, and therefore Rick Hurtado didn't give us any players. And before the other group, we got players with no problem. And Freddie tells me we'll get them again. But yes, I think we'll get them. I think it'll happen either this summer or this fall.
Good deal. Yeah, I think it's good that they're kind of keeping the players at bay. I know people want to hear from them, but let's go win some games and get everything done and then worry about it.
Shane, can I get one thing in before we leave? I know you got to go. I thought this weekend's golf was so good, and yet who knew it would be that event that would bring it to us? The guy who won was a wonderful story. There were a couple of good stories. Obviously, the one with Oakland, the basketball team, and that whole story was terrific. I love that. My favorite story of the whole Final Four so far. But Malnati, who is a 36-year-old guy who's given everything basically to the PGA Tour, and who cares about the PGA Tour anymore? Nobody. Oh, let's go get some money. This guy has given his life to it, and he's on the policy board. He's been playing and playing and playing, but he never has enough time to work on his game. He's got 2 young boys, and he won, and it was such a tremendous interview. You talk about gratitude. It's so good to see someone with all this money being spent. And all the people say, well, the story's about the money. Well, sometimes it's not about the money. And Malnati last weekend and sitting there with weeping, talking about how it changed his life. He gets a master's. He never played in a major, and this guy played so good down the stretch at a tournament that not many people saw. I was really touched by his story. I'm a fan of his now. I'll be following him. These are the people who hold things together when there is problems, when the two PGA Tour seems to be falling apart. Guys like Malnati, unselfishly gave up his time and effort and long hours to be on the policy board when he could have been working on his game. I salute him for the way he's handled his life. I salute him for his victory. I salute him for his values. And yes, Shane's values do matter.
Yeah, it was great. I watched a lot of it because kudos to the PGA Tour for setting up a real golf course the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
tight fairways and rough and make those jokers struggle. Buddy, good stuff as always, my man. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, baseball, we're opening today, Rays and Jays on Thursday. Don't forget, Shane, turn it on the Valley and watch it.
I'll do it. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte surrounding areas. Go visit them at peachlanddental.com. I'm going to take a quick time out, come back, get your questions ready for Graham Hall from 24/7 Sports. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union.
Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Dave & Buster's Eat, Drink, Play, Watch. Radware, your local provider of promotional products, uniforms, and apparel. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Radware, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Ruse Ogre State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visitogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. Going to head back to the Titan MR hotline courtesy of Comfort Temp, and it's our man from 24/7 Sports, Graham Hall. Good morning, Graham. How you doing, bud?
Good morning, Shane. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start recruiting-wise. And I know Jacob does most of y'all's recruiting, but I know you're familiar with it. A lot of Gator fans are in an uproar about this kid out of Jacksonville. I want to say it's Mandarin, highly recruited kid. He's committed to the USC Trojans. Not that that means anything at this moment, But what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Hilton Stubbs was a guy that Florida was after for the past couple of months. It looked like Florida was trending upward and becoming one of the top schools for him. But, interesting decision. I'll say that. You go to USC to play defense, maybe an opportunity to see the field early, just knowing what we saw out of that team last year. But for the optics of Florida, losing a guy from your backyard, 90 minutes up the road, if that, not really a great look for Florida's staff. Now, we obviously don't know what happens behind the scenes. Maybe Florida was not pushing as hard for this kid as some other schools, and maybe he had an incentive to want to hop in early. Like you said, these are verbal commitments, and until they actually put pen to paper and sign, I do caution people to get overly negative or even overly positive, as we saw last year with Florida's class, that based on how the season goes, things can all come undone here. And USC certainly has a lot of questions, not just on the defensive side of the ball, but replacing Caleb Williams, the likely number 1 overall pick. If things don't go right there for him, Florida is going to be right there in the mix as well. And you saw at the end of last year's cycle, there's no problem with finishing number 2 in some situations. You look at how Florida was able to get DeAndre Robinson, Jameer Grimsley, even after that early signing window. So like you said, it may not feel great or look great right now, but this thing is most likely far from over. And if Florida really wants the kid, I know that they've done a really good job of pursuing players throughout the cycle. And I would expect that to be the case here if Florida is really looking to get him in the fold. But, it certainly doesn't look great right now. I totally understand that, because you want to keep guys within your radius and get them in the program if there's someone that's, on top of your board.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. It's a long ways away, and more that kid thinks about going from Jacksonville, Florida to LA, he may change his mind. Another question here, and I'm not sure where these kids play, but Andy wants to know, do the Gators have a shot at landing Eric Winters and Zion Grady? Could they be a package deal since they're teammates in high school?
Yeah, it's certainly possible. A timely question, because they're expected to be on Florida's campus today, visiting the program, checking out spring practice. And that's really, I think, been a push from Florida's coaching staff, is getting these guys on campus for spring practice to see how the coaches run things, how they coach. And if that's a style that fits prospects, that certainly is, I think, a huge selling point, because it's one thing to be on a kid every single day and make a consistent pitch to them. I think that absolutely that is something that goes a long way, but seeing how a coaching staff interacts and works with their current players is absolutely, in my mind, a more powerful selling tool in a lot of situations. Zion Grady is one that I think Florida is going to have a chance with, a guy on the edge that certainly they're going to need some depth there in the next couple of cycles, just given what they currently have. And adding guys like LJ McCray and several other players to the mix here from last year's cycle, I think that absolutely you're going to have a chance to, seeing how LJ's season plays out, you're going to be able to recruit based off that. So this is one where it's possible to be a package deal. It's something that it's pretty rare in my mind, but when you have players who are highly rated and want to go play together, recruiting them together with the opportunity to both have a successful collegiate career is something that can work in your favor. So we'll know a little bit more in the next 72 hours over where those guys stand with the Florida program, because they're, like I said, they're expected to be on campus here this week to see some spring practice.
All right. Josh on the Titan MR text line says, Graham, can you tell us about the recruit that committed over the weekend, but the team didn't accept his commitment or something like that?
Yeah, Keon Young, I don't want to in any way disparage the kid. I don't want to disparage Florida's coaching staff in any way, because we don't know the behind the scenes particulars. And that's really what I want to stress here. Now, it appears on the outset that there was a miscommunication. He commits through Hayes Fawcett at on 3. Florida, as we all know, did not take his commitment. Now it doesn't mean that if they do want him down the line, that he may not become a part of this class. But as of right now, from what we've gathered, He is not committed to the University of Florida. This is something that, I always just kind of feel for the kid in this situation, because it seems to draw some negative attention to them, as maybe seeming as if they're desperate or something like that. I don't want to insinuate that whatsoever. There was some miscommunication here. All that I can tell people is that he is not committed to the University of Florida at this time. And I should probably leave it at that. Anyone making overreactions based on what happened with the kid and based on the coaching staff, I would encourage you not to do that, because that does more harm than good. The speculation here, this is a kid's decision-making process for the biggest decision of his life so far. And that's really what it comes down to for me when I see something like this. Is it can be a little bit just sad to see that it didn't go according to plan. That's really what it boils down to in my mind.
Jim on the Titan text line says, Graham, what are you hearing from spring practice, and what newcomers have looked pretty good?
Yeah, I'll start with DJ Lagway. I think that he's going to be under the microscope the entire time he's at Florida. You know that he is considered to be the number 2 quarterback on Florida's roster right now. Obviously, let's pencil that in here, because Florida's not assigning a depth chart at this point. We're months away from that happening. But when you look at DJ Lagway, we know that this is a guy with tremendous arm power, very intelligent. And it looks like, obviously I'm no coach, and Shane, you probably can do a better job of assessing this from seeing him and watching the clips of him that have come out. It looks like he has continued to improve his throwing mechanics, which, seeing that within a 3-month span from the kid getting on campus, is incredibly encouraging, not just for him, showing that he's receptive to coaching, even as a highly touted prospect. There's no one out there at the high school level when they arrive at college that is a perfectly refined product. And seeing a highly rated guy embrace coaching and work on his game this early bodes well for the future. That is something that stands out to me right away. I think that you look at LJ McCray, just a incredibly well put together individual from the personal standpoint, someone who is a hard worker, never complacent, has a great motor. And I do think that maybe his role will change at Florida as the years progress, but I think this is someone that is setting himself up well to see the field in some capacity in year one. Those are two that absolutely stand out to me. And then one more I want to mention is just the energy from Florida's coaching staff. Not saying that the previous coaches weren't energized out there, but Gerald Chapman is someone you can hear from across the field when you're at practice. He is engaged with the defensive line. He always has something to say. He's a very good motivator. I can easily understand why they brought him in. No disrespect to guys like Sean Spencer whatsoever, but you can see the energy from him when you're at practice. And the same can be said with Will Harris. I think that he just absolutely has a very thorough understanding of not just technique, but how to connect with kids when they're on the field here. And that is something that can be a difficult balance. And I think he's done, from what I've seen, a very good job of that so far. So that certainly is what stands out to me. There are a few positions where Florida would like to get a little bit healthier, certainly along the offensive line. Obviously, losing Miles Graham for spring camp is not ideal. Austin Barber continuing to work his way back from a shoulder injury. I don't know how minor or what it is for him. I don't think it's going to be a long-term thing. For Barber, I just kind of feel for him because he's been consistently dealing with some form of injury throughout his time at Florida, and a guy expected to play left tackle for Florida once again this year. You need to get him healthy sooner than later, of course. So those are some things that stand out to me. And the last thing I'll say is that when you talk to Billy Napier and you even get him behind closed doors, this is a guy who seems more confident in the setup of Florida's roster right now, from the depth to the coaching. He seems, I've used the term cautiously optimistic when talking about him. And the reason I say cautious in there is because he thinks that this could be a competitive team. You know, they were a couple plays away from being 7-5 last year. If they can get to that, or maybe get to 8 wins with this gauntlet of a 2024 season, that is going to be incredibly impressive in my mind. That's the real key. That's going to be tough to gauge how good this Florida program is, just how difficult the schedule is. They may be a much better team in all aspects, but when you're facing this amount of impressive opponents, it's going to be hard to get a sense of that. But when you talk to players inside the building, they feel that Florida's trending in the right direction. And I really think that that should be a lot of people's main takeaway. You can't really control what goes on in your neighbor's backyard. You can only focus on what you're improving. And everything that we've heard lines up with Florida continuing to take steps in the right direction. And that's all you can ask for right now in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, talent-wise, this team will be better than last year from top to bottom, I think. You know, you lose Ricky Pearsall, which is going to really hurt. But, you know, I was mentioning to Buddy, you know, you look at Pro Day, and I talked to a couple scouts that are friends of mine. They're like, y'all have one guy that we're coming to look at, and that's Ricky Pearsall. So it goes to show you the talent and the talent that Napier and his staff have brought in, I think are pretty good players. Back to Miles Graham. You know, I think the world of Miles Graham. I think he's an impact player immediately. Are there any concerns about this back injury?
I really can't say right now. I'm not really privy to how they feel about it. When they've discussed the injury, it seems like something that the sooner that you take care of it, the better, right? If he had it lingering in high school and then he arrives here, you certainly want to get that taken care of as quick as possible. And missing spring for him, while not ideal in any capacity, you want to make sure that that thing doesn't get worse. You think of a back injury, though, and I think that can be a little bit scary just to hear because it's something that may reoccur, and you want to obviously manage it as your life and career goes on here. So I can't say how detrimental it is going to be to him at this time. I do think that him missing spring is unfortunate because they feel really good about not just him, but Aaron Childs as well. And that's two guys that they won't have for the spring who I think are going to be able to contribute this year. The linebacker room is quite interesting to me. Obviously, you have Derek Wingo, you have Manny Nunnery, two veterans coming back here for their 5th and 6th years, respectively. And I think that those guys are probably poised to play a significant role this season. And then you also are working back Shamar James, who I do think is going to be healthier here sooner than later and ready to contribute before the end of spring camp. But it really hurts from a depth standpoint, certainly, because I'm with you. I think Miles Graham is going to be a tremendous player, and him missing out on practice time is not great by any means. But I hope it's very minor for him, and I hope he's back really quickly because you never like seeing that a guy who enrolls early, does everything right in the workout program, is respected already within 3 months of being on campus just for who he is as a person and the challenges he embraced of being a legacy guy, enrolling at the program where his father was a standout running back. You want to see a guy have success just knowing that they come in with maybe additional expectations here. So certainly not a great situation. I haven't heard anything that make me have long-term concerns. I just think it's unfortunate that he's not going to be able to be out there for the entirety of spring practice.
Yeah. All right, let's switch gears before we get you out of baseball. They've won the first 2 series against 2 top-ranked teams. A lot of people were doubting Sully, the pitching. We all understand all that, but it seems like they're coming around. They're scoring runs. They play tonight against the semis in Jacksonville, and we know how the midweek games have gone. Do you think Sully approaches this game any differently tonight?
I think he realizes that he still has to make some decisions about who his midweek arms are going to be. You know, we've seen guys step up throughout the midweek. You know, McNeely has looked good. I think that certainly this is a situation where you look at who they have on the mound for the midweeks. This is a case where it's not where they want it to be. I mean, they, in my mind, can win a series against any team in the country when it comes to the weekend, but the midweek games are something they continue to need to figure out here. Now, let me say this, you can, make the College World Series even by losing all your midweek games if you go out there and take care of business throughout the weekend. But I think that Kevin O'Sullivan's going to continue to experiment with his lineup. He's going to try and push his freshman arms to take the next step, knowing that we're getting into SEC play here. And Florida has kind of put a target on their back when it comes to midweek games, where I think a lot of teams, whether it's UCF, Jacksonville, obviously, and FSU, that's 3 opponents Florida has lost midweek games to in the last 3 weeks. Those teams feel that they can get a win over a top 10 team, the number 6 team in the country during the midweek. Where I'm encouraged is that Florida's offense looks capable of keeping them in a game on any given night, even if they're giving up runs at a higher rate than they would like here. So certainly it's better in my mind to be trying to figure out what you got on the mound during the midweek games than to be struggling at the plate, because when you see offensive struggles at this time of the year, that usually doesn't go away in my mind. So it is certainly something that Florida has to work on. And tonight is going to be a big test against a very, very good Florida State team, a team that hasn't played as difficult of a schedule as Florida has, but they've won a ton of games here. When they faced off with Florida a couple of weeks ago, they were undefeated. So this is certainly a rivalry game, neutral site where Florida would like to get this win. And if they can manage to do that and get some confidence, on the mound, I think it'll be really, really helpful for this team moving forward, because they show a ton of potential. And like I said, they're difficult to beat any given weekend.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Okay, last question. Natasha wanted to know, we've brought in some old linemen. How are they looking? Because Graham needs time to throw the ball deep.
Yeah, I'll start with Brendan Crenshaw-Dixon. I think that's a guy who at right tackle, if he stays at right tackle, is going to give Florida an improvement there on the right side of the offensive line. You slide Damian George inside. He's changed his body a good bit. Maybe that will help him this year after he really did not have the best season. Let me put it that kindly. Last season at right tackle, you obviously lost some veterans, guys like Lindell Hudson. But if you talk to Rob Sale, he's more confident in what they have along the offensive line than they did last year. From a depth standpoint, certainly, I know that they're going to have to play some young guys, whether it's Najee Harris at left guard, who I expect to be the starting left guard when all is said and done. You got a battle at center in my mind between Jake Slaughter and Roderick Kearney. One of those guys is going to be able to play a role, and they're going to be able to maybe have some depth there at the center position. If one of them, wins the role here, I could see both of them end up rotating in there, keeping guys fresh. But if you talk, like I said, to Rob Sale, he's more confident that they have more depth and have improved leadership as well at that position. You want to have guys that can play through injury, and that wasn't always the case last year. And I think that they've instilled a culture where they understand that they're going to have to play through some struggles. And like I said, with Austin Barber, having him stay healthy is certainly a key. You're going to get some freshmen here. Marcus Mascal is going to be on campus here in summer. You signed some promising freshmen. Noel Porton-Joggin, I think, is going to be really good down the line here. Christian Williams is battling with Najee Harris for that left guard spot. So I do think that they're trending in the right direction. I've also heard really good things about Bryce Lovett. Let me say this. If you don't know the name Bryce Lovett by now, you absolutely should learn it. He's someone that in the next couple of years, I think, is going to be a standout offensive lineman for Florida, just given his work ethic, how he understands his technique, how he, like I said, fights through ailments at times. This is a guy who I think is going to be really good for Florida. And I think the offensive line is going to take a step in the right direction this year, because absolutely you can't have them regressing after last season, just knowing how that unit seemed to hold Florida's offense back at times.
Yep, for sure. All right, Graham, great stuff as always. Let everybody know they can follow you on Twitter. Y'all got any specials going on right now?
We just finished doing a 50% off deal. We'll have one very soon here before the end of spring camp. So make sure you check that out. You always can try us out. We are always running promos for 1 month for $1. So if you want to join the largest community in Florida Gators coverage, nonstop coverage every single day. You mentioned Jacob Rudner. He does a fantastic job. He's going to be up there in Jacksonville tonight covering the baseball game. I'm going to be out at spring practice tonight. Blake Alderman does a fantastic job of recruiting as well. Check out his midweek visit article list that he dropped this morning around 7 a.m. He's a dog, works tirelessly as well. So if you want to find out who's going to be on campus, what visits are being set up for this weekend, check him out as well, and follow me on X at Graham Hall. And Shane, it's always a pleasure. I'm looking forward to being back real soon, talking all things Gators with you, man.
Absolutely, my man. I appreciate your time, Graham.
Always my pleasure. Y'all take care up there.
Yep, that is Graham Hall, one of the best in the business. We appreciate him taking time to join us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Hope you enjoyed today's program. We will have JC tomorrow. We'll do our Peachland Dental golf picks. We'll also have Mike Morgan from the SEC Network talking a little hoops and the Sweet 16. Appreciate your time today, folks. Have a great day. Take care.